So this is the new output of our program. Right, so it basically takes integer input from the user, populates integer variable named value right here, right? So we use input to populate the value, then we display the value, then we ask for another variable which is called name, but this time it's a string. Okay, so it's not a number, it's a string. You see, this is not an integer, it's a string. Then we echo it back, and you can see that I typed in XYZ and I printed XYZ for my, debugging view, just to make sure that the program executes correctly. With this in mind, I would like to tell you a few things about data types. So when we declare variables, and this is one example of variable declaration, and this is another example of variable declaration, which is very important because it's creation of an object in memory. You can see that, of course, their behavior is different. It's not the same behavior, because with integers you can do computations, with strings you can do text manipulation. Right, so intention is very different. But SIN, character input device here, its input operator over here, input shift operator, is sensitive to the data type which was provided. So string, it will try to populate with text, whereas the integer value, of course, which is the value that I have over here, it will try to take text from the user and convert it to an appropriate data type, which is an integer. Okay, let's do another quick demonstration. So this time what I will try, right, I will try to replace 155 with some kind of garbage like this and see what happens, right? So this is exactly what I would like to try to type as an input and see how this will behave if this was attempted to be used as an integer, right? So again, I'll just do quick build because I'm changing the source code, and control F5 to run it. So this time I say this, and let's make a copy of all of this and paste. Sorry, I didn't capture it, so I'll just run it very quickly again. So once again, I will enter some kind of garbage, right? I get this, so let's quickly copy it. Paste this into the view. I do this because windows outside Visual Studio are not captured by my recorder. So here, right? So enter an integer, and you can see that I entered this garbage value, which of course is intentional, unintentional, who knows? It just happened, okay? So it says you entered 0. Very likely that, my expectation is that perhaps this integer value was initially populated with 0, but I don't know, right? I have yet to find out. And then this conversion from this type of input to an integer has failed. And when it happens, the character input device goes into a failed state. That means that the meaning of failed state of character input is that if it failed to do the operation that was asked to do, because obviously it says I just cannot do this, right? I cannot take this input and make an integer out of it. So what it doesn't do, it goes into a failed state that allows you to do additional processing with it, like try to recover the data, try to understand what the user has entered, try to see if it's some kind of a different data type that you can continue to use. But in failed state, if I continue using it like then, I said, okay, you entered something and what is your name, you can see that it never waited for this, and it just essentially the next attempt to do an input it ignores in failed state. So in the future, like in a few weeks, we're going to learn how to manipulate states and how to recover from input errors and what to do in each situation. For now, those first few initial weeks, we're just going to use C out and C in such manner that we're just going to try to provide exactly correct input and try not to intentionally make it a failed, turn them into failed state, so that we don't have to struggle with these strange situations where we need to do maintenance on our inputs. So, but nevertheless, this was populated with a 0. Right. So, and then the string renamed empty. Right. You see, this my decoration actually helped me to understand better what is the content of this name when this statement executes. Right. You see that my square brackets standing right next to each other, so I can see that the string is empty. So nothing happened to it. So I'm just curious about this integer value, where the 0 came from. I'll show you how you can quickly find out. So once again, I'll just make sure that I build it and everything is in place. I will place, I will go to the margin of this and click here. It inserts this dot on the margin, and it creates a debugger breakpoint inside of my source code. So this time, if I have it, if I say debug and if I say start debugging, okay, this time the debugger starts first, and then it launches the program, and then it starts executing it. Okay, so you see that yeah, it's still loading, and it's trying to go through, loading all the debugging components. So what I would like to do now, okay, so it says enter an integer, right? Enter an integer, and then it stops on stops the execution. Let me just close the windows that I don't need. This I don't need, this I don't need, so I'll just keep this in view. When this indicator shows up, it tells me that the debug run has stopped, and this is the next statement to execute. So why was it needed for me? I decided I would like to have it. So you see that the value, the variable has been already declared, has been already created for me. I can see it very clearly. And see, it says value in my automatic variable display over here. And you see that its value is negative 8589, blah, 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 blah. Some kind of strange value. So this strange value, we can just call it like a garbage value, because we never provided any value initially. So it's just a random value that happened to be in that memory. But now I will execute my input, right? So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to say debug, and you can see that we can say something like step over the statement. So essentially execute next statement. Okay, so this is what I will do, execute the next statement. Right, and a shortcut for it is F10. So I'll just continue here, and I press F10. And as soon as I press F10, it goes back to the prompt and everything continues to work. Again, I enter my garbage value like this, hit enter, and we step over. So now sin is in failed state because we know that it could not convert it. But notice that the value, right, this debug environment shows me that the value has been changed to 0, right? So even though the proper input has failed, this attempt to make such input does not guarantee that the previous value is not destroyed. In fact, The original value, which was negative something, 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 now changed to a 0, which is a side effect of this error. Just a quick observation, right? So just to be aware of this type of behavior, and typically during debugging session, once I've seen something I wanted to visualize, I just go back to debug and say stop debugging, and I say, okay, I'm done with it. Right? And normally when I'm done with my debugging session, I also go and remove the breakpoint. I don't like breakpoints that I no longer use, so just remove it quickly. Put it in, test, take a look, go back and remove it.